In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our mind.
Good evening, America. Welcome to a special edition of America in Black and White, where we confront the issues shaping our nation with clarity, courage, and conviction. Tonight's conversation is not about left or right. It's about lived reality of everyday Americans who are trying to navigate uncertainty, instability, and the shifting ground beneath our feet. We are living in a moment where leadership is being tested on every front. Some people believe the current administration's decisions reflect strength and direction, while others see turbulence and unpredictability. But no matter where you stand, one thing is clear: the American people deserve answers, accountability, and a path forward. Tonight, we're diving into major issues affecting households across this country: the possibility of a government shutdown in February, the future of healthcare subsidies, the state of our economy, the ongoing fight for voting rights, the complexities of immigration, and rising tensions that have placed America in conflict with Venezuela. This isn't just news. This is about your family, your finances, your freedoms, and your future. So let's talk about it openly, honestly, and without fear. Welcome to the conversation. And those of you that are watching, especially on the YouTube channels or anywhere you're watching, please feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. And I promise you, they will be read aloud and answered as we do this broadcast. So we're going to talk first about leadership in America. How people across the country are interpreting the administration's decisions. We have those people, again, I guess if you're left or you're right, when you say if you're left, then they say you are a Democrat or you are liberal. If you are to the left, then they say you are Republican and you are a conservative. Well, again, I think for both sides, I think they may think about moderation or moderates, but they're forgetting to think about the people that are independent, and those are the people that make up their own minds. And those are people that don't support either party, but support the issues that are most important to them. And that's the side where I stand as we talk about this particular situation. In this first part, as we talk about interpreting the administration's decisions, what we're finding, for one, let's go back and let's start to where we are right now. We all know that we have a felon that's running this country that's considered to be the leader of the free world. This man is not a president, but he is definitely an occupier. So the issues that are at hand, what comes to play with this is, for those that say that we have a democracy, they want to protect the democracy, they want to do the things that are important about the democracy, or the majority of the same people that went and voted for this person that made this decision while running for office, that stated that those at the top 1% would get what's theirs and they wouldn't have to worry about that because he was going to make America great again and put things back the way they were supposed to be. Now, as we think about these decisions, this man has made the worst decisions when it comes to economics because, for one, he's totally destroyed the economy, and the economy is doing backflips. And so instead of working for everybody, it only works for the top 1%. And so when I say the top 1%, that are those folks that are in that billionaire class. Now, when you say billionaires, some people say there are an enormous amount of billionaires, but that's true, but that's not true. You see, the ones that are actually benefiting from this, the decisions that this guy has made, and again, I refuse to say his name because that name is just, it's not fitting for this platform. But what this man is doing is, for one, everything that needs to help each and every individual in this country. He's made sure that this does not happen. This even includes, as of just lately, where he has actually come out with what's considered to be a proposal or an action that would defund Black America. That's what I said, defund Black America. So I want you to think about that and think about those folk that troll the internet and try to call Black people racist when these are the very people that are benefiting from racist situations, racial policies, and racist actions. So it's the racist, the dumbest criminal in the world. This man is just a flat out disgrace. He's a total disgrace. And to think that somebody would actually have the gall to vote for that piece of trash, put it in the White House in DC, where he is clearly thinking of and trying to find several ways to take rights away from people that are not white. He's a pure racist. Don't care how you look at it. He's a racist. But how dumb and how stupid this actually gets is that this man has the support of not only that dumbass Congress, but the dumb Senate, as well as the Supreme Court. And these folk are actually allowing this man to destroy the fabric of the country, to prevent anyone else from creating generational wealth and upward mobility to do their part to not only create their own legacies for their families and benefit their communities, but to take that away and say it's strictly about white people. This man is a racist. But to call him a racist and then you have people that support him makes you wonder what has been put in the Kool-Aid that they have drank. Because clearly, there is no way that you can say that the policies that are in place right now are going to benefit anyone that's not in the top 1%. So it affects a lot of us. It has affected a lot of us right now. And so just think about as it comes up, because this is bottom up. So, those that may have the opportunity of having the luxury of being a little bit comfortable at this point, I can honestly tell you that as this continues, they'll be affected this year. Because it's already affected those that are working and living paycheck to paycheck. The second part about this is the public concerns about stability, direction, and national priorities. This man is violating states' rights by trying to activate National Guard, the National Guards to come into many different states without the inaction of the actual governor of these states. That's illegal. You can't do that. But the Supreme Court is allowing him to do that. So that in itself right there, that's one of the actual priorities that's an actual problem. Because as a national priority, this is not something that you would think that would happen unless we had an act of war, where you actually have the opportunity and you are supposed to activate the National Guard. But you get folk that are on that left, on that conservative side, that's saying they're for that because they're saying that he should only put those in what they call, for those people that, the people on the right are the folk that's the conservative. but he is saying that he wants to activate the National Guard, and they believe that they should put them in those states for the people on the left, which are the Democratic side. Now, how is that legal, and why is it that these states and these governors are having to go and fight for these rights? That's unheard of. That if you got the district courts that are ruling in favor of these states and these governors, which should never take place, but then the appeal that goes to the Supreme Court is approved by the Supreme Court. And again, the Supreme Court lets you know, if for those that still feel like there's one justice system, that that's a big lie. Because there is no way that every time there's a problem and he takes it to the Supreme Court, that with the 6-3 favor that they have, that he's not going to win. Now, again, these folk are the most corrupt judges I've ever seen in my entire life. I haven't been here long, but 59 years is a while, I think. And so to know this means that we as a people, the American people, are going to have to do better. Because these divisive policies and the way that they're able to rile up folk to create these narratives that's making people go out and create commit all of these heinous crimes is just it's just ridiculous. It's unreal. There's no way that something like that should actually happen. The direction in which he's taking the country is taking the country back. He's trying to take us back to 1955. So primarily, in not quite a year's time, he's already set this country back 30 years. He set the country back 30 years already. So that means that the progress that most people have made, especially those that are Black, African Americans, he's taken us back 30 years, which is not going to allow a lot of the progress that we're having, such as like we already had issues getting loans when we needed them. Now it's pretty much, only a select few would be able to have that opportunity because most things right now at this point are not affordable. But those people that are working paycheck to paycheck, 2 jobs, maybe 3, you're being taxed unbelievably. I mean, taxes are going up. It doesn't matter what state you're in, but you're being taxed at a rate that's definitely not livable. So if you've got to work 3 to 4 jobs just to survive, which means if you've got to work that many jobs, you're not spending time with family if you have a family. And if you're not spending time with your family, then what is it that you've got to do in order to make this situation much better for yourself and your family? First thing is, they need to impeach this person that's sitting in the White House and get him out of there. They need to get him out of there. But the problem that you have with that is that you have those that are controlling all 3 branches of government that are on that conservative side refuse to do the right thing, which means a seat is the most important thing to them. And following, being a lapdog for a criminal that everybody knows is a criminal, and they refuse to do their due diligence. So if they're not going to do their due diligence, I'm saying this right now, if we're not unified, and if we're not out there doing the things that we're supposed to do in order to make our lives better, these people, if they will stop nothing short, that if they can kill and get rid of each and every Black person on the face of this earth, they would. They would, and that's the whole premise. Donald Trump is a racist. I'm saying that right now. He's a racist, and he's a nasty, low-down, trifling piece of trash that does not know the first thing about business, and people are calling him a businessman. Who in the world could control a business and bankrupt 6 times? If you got to bankrupt 6 times, that means that you don't know the first thing about business. But again, that's favor. That's favor. And that's what people that look like him rely on. They rely on the status of being white. If you're black, you're not going to get that way. But why is it that most of you are refusing to unite? The horrible thing about this is that this man has taken us in a direction that I can honestly tell you that we'll be living like a lot of other folks from a different cultural perspective, where we too might wind up living 10 to 15 people in a house in order to survive. That is totally unheard of. But that's the direction that the country is going. That's the direction he's taking the country on. When you talk about the benefits and the services that people are entitled to, not just by being citizens, but by working and doing your part of paying your fair share into the tax system, into whatever parts of the systems in which funding flows. If you're paying for that, you should get the opportunity to take advantage and use the programs if you need them. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. For one, I'm going to tell you this, especially for the wonderful folk that put this man in office, is that I'm going to start with Social Security. Right now, they're playing with Social Security to the point that what they're going to be doing, they're trying to find a way right now where they've been using it as a slush fund. All the trillions of dollars that's been in that program that's been contributed by those from ever since the program began. They've been taking that money out. That is, every time you look at these conservatives that are in the White House, they've been taking this money from Social Security and using it everywhere in which they want to do. This administration is not the exception to the rule, because it's using it more than you can ever imagine. But then want to cry foul and talk about fraud when this administration is the broadest. I mean, it's the most, oh my God, they've committed more fraud than you can ever imagine. You're sitting here watching people that are directors and leaders of all these agencies that are stealing money from different parts of the government right in front of our faces, and the Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court are doing nothing to stop it. They're approving it. They approved that when they actually had those placate lawsuits that was in place in the beginning, when he should have been put in prison, not allowed to run for president because he's already been charged for the felonies, but not actually put in prison. They said that he's not ever going to be charged, or you cannot charge him for the crimes in which he has done when he was president or when he is president. So now he's got freedom to run roughshod over the government. So when you talk about stealing from Social Security, you're talking about stealing from Medicaid and Medicare. And if you're stealing from Medicaid and Medicare, and those people that are on the lower end of the spectrum that actually need that for medical care, especially dealing with the affordable health care, which means that it allows them to have much more of an opportunity to use health care than used to be. They've now cut that short. They've taken funding away from that. They've reallocated those funds to something that they're using for their different slush funds, for the different monies that's going to their bank accounts. These people are stealing money. They are stealing money. And they're doing it in front of our faces, but the folk that are supposed to hold them accountable are not holding them accountable. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, because there are some Democrats that are also a part of that same game. So then the question comes to, well, what do you do? If it's a Democrat or a Republican, then I just shouldn't even participate. That's not true either. But that is what they are leaving the impression for a lot of people, to not participate in their civic duties, because they figure the more they can turn you off, the more they'll be able to take. The third part of this situation with the leadership in America is the impact and the tone on national unity. The divisiveness is like as high as it's ever been. Racial tensions are worse than they were in the 1800s. They are worse than they were in the 60s. They are worse than what they were in the 40s and the 50s. Because now they've created such a disparity that they have people believing that black people have not only stolen from everybody else, but black people are the problem and they're causing more issues than you can ever imagine. But if there's an issue that they want to have with black people, you know what that issue would be? Is that every time they move the goalposts, black people have actually got with the game, ran with the program, exceeded in the program, and then they want to push it further and say, no, you can't do this, now you have to do this, and you have to do this. They're continuously changing the game. So now, in knowing that this is the case, this is where I'm trying to, I have a problem, and maybe somebody can tell me, send me some comments and questions and tell me what would make somebody want to support this situation or this person if they are not the same. And when I say if they're not the same, it does not matter what your ethnicity is. It does not matter what your ethnicity is. If you're supporting that, then you're the same person. Because remember, the stereotype is if you're black, you must be a criminal. If you're white, you must be smart and you must be rich. When it's the other way around. When are we going to flip that narrative? When are we going to flip that narrative? Because if we don't flip that narrative and let that be known and clear, it's factually proven, you don't have to do anything else but show the facts to prove this. Embellishment is not needed for this. But that's what some people have a tendency to do. My whole premise about this is that we have to do what we have to do in order to get this country back, in order for us to start a new path and make it correct. Because what has actually taken place and all that progress has been pushed all the way back. And if it's pushed all the way back, that means that we're going to have further to go in order to get back to where we were before this man got into the White House. That's the problem. So let me go to this situation where a lot of people still probably forgot about this, but there's a possibility that there's going to be another government shutdown in February. Now, remember, let's go back to what happened. I think that was November of last year when you had 8 Democratic senators cross the aisle. They crossed the aisle to side with the Republicans because they felt like they could just do that and that they will hold them to a word that they would actually renew the subsidies for the Affordable Health Care Act for everyone, that they were supposed to just extend this and it was supposed to be fine. Well, we're now in January. Those subsidies have not been extended. And so now that's going to be the main priority again when they come back up to extending or voting for budgets, shall I say, in order to keep the government funded. Now, what's going to be crazy and what's really horrible about this is this last government shutdown downgraded America's credit. It downgraded the credit because this administration alone right now, in its first 10 months, have added $10 trillion to the deficit. $10 trillion. Nobody, a lot of people can't even fathom how many numbers that is, how many zeros. They've added $10 trillion to the deficit. Meaning, when they got in there and the lies that they told folk when they was running for office is that, oh, Joe Biden had ran the deficit sky high. When Joe Biden got in there, Joe Biden had to fix the mess of this occupier after that first term. Now, there's flaws that's in the Biden administration as well. There were several flaws. But in those flaws, I do have to say that it was not nearly as worrisome as what we have right now. And the reason why I say that is I want you guys to think. When Obama came in after Bush in 2008, Obama had to bring the government back to equilibrium, which he got close. It wasn't all the way there, but we were pretty much in a much better situation than we were under the Bush administration. Obama had to borrow that money and do the stimulus situation in order to bring everything back to fold. Because I want you guys to remember the car industry was about to die out. We had issues with labor where the unemployment rate was high and job creations was very low. Interest rates were high. All of this happened before Obama took office. When Obama took office, Obama brought the deficit down, interest rates came down, and for the whole 8 years that he was in office, the unemployment rate dropped under 3%, but had a steady increase in jobs the whole entire time. The first time the occupier took over, when President Obama got out of office in 2016, all of that good work that was done started the decline. We lost jobs consecutively, but every month under that 4-year period that the occupier was in there, the deficit went back high because they were spending money on those tax breaks that was given to the top 1%. And they're doing that again, but this time they were able to make them permanent, having control of both the House and the Senate. So there was still no budget, but in the process of there not being a budget, now we're going to have to worry about, for workers and families in general, but also the government employees. The non-essential workers are going to be furloughed again. Now remember, unemployment was low with Biden, where he had got down to under 3%. Unemployment now has ticked back up to, I think it's 6 or 7%. So if it's ticked up to 6 or 7%, and for the Biden administration where it was a little bit under 3%, what do you think has happened to those jobs? What people need to understand is that you've got a lot of these major corporations like Walmart, like Target, IBM, Apple. Well, not Apple, I'm sorry, but they don't, well, Apple gets those credits. Microsoft, who does the spying for the government. All of these companies and their owners and creators that sit here at this top 1%, that top 1% has got a very small number there of people that fit that fit in this tier. And they want to keep it that way. There's not one black person that's in that top 1%. So just think about it. These are the people that are controlling the country. These are the people that are actually making the worldly decisions here in America. These are the people that make the decision if they want to have employment or if they want to just squeeze the neck of every person that's not in that class and take everything away from them. And so what this deserves to be talked about is that not only do these people, are going to cause, if the government does shut down again, we know that means that the healthcare subsidies are going to come up again, even though they expired as of December 31st, which means that if they get a deal done with that, that means that they can backdate it. But even if they backdate it, think about where you're at right now, because those when you go and see the doctor now, you're still paying a high rate for a premium. You're paying high rates. Your co-pays have gone up and will continue to go up. You're not going to be able to go back and tell that doctor, well, hey, this is what happened under the Affordable Health Care Act, and if they did this is a scenario. So they say they get an agreement and they go back and they say, okay, well, you're able to, we're going to backdate this, so the subsidies are going to be extended for 2 years, 3 years, or whatever have you. So even if they did that, you can't go back to the doctor and say, okay, well, the Affordable Health Care Act has changed this, so I need to get some of my money back that I paid you. The doctor's office is not going to do that, because most of them that's part of the Medical Association support what Donald Trump is doing. Most of them support what Donald Trump is doing. So again, greed is what's at stake when it comes to this country here, because all of your rights, they're infringing on people's rights. They're infringing. They're basically trying to say that if you're non-white, you don't have rights. And remember, they wrote this thing that they call the Constitution. So they're always able to find language to circumvent that whenever they get ready. And the last part of this is how Congress is responding and what Americans should watch for. When it comes to Congress, if Congress has not responded to the subsidies for health care, if they have not responded to what is going to be or what's looming large, that is to get this budget in order for the government to stay open. If Congress don't actually do its job in conjunction with the Senate and remove this occupier out the White House, then we will continue to have the problems that we have, because there's too much of the yes man thing going on instead of people actually doing a job. Everybody that's in that cabinet, every last one of them are DEI hires. None of them are qualified to be in the White House. Not one of them. Starting with Donald Trump. Should not be in the White House. Kash Patel, FBI director, DEI hire. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, DEI hire. Hegseth, DEI hire. And the list goes on. None of these people are qualified. They say they got rid of DEI, but his whole entire cabinet is a DEI hire. Every last one of them, because none of them are qualified, and everything that they're doing is putting the country at risk. So let's talk more in depth about these healthcare subsidies. Well, subsidies, what they mean for working people. What they mean for working people is, when you work and you have the affordable health care, it's not a problem at the low rates that they are, in order for people to afford health care to take care of their families. That was the whole premise of the Affordable Health Care Act. Now, we should all have been alarmed when these people actually had the gall to say everybody was not entitled to health care and health care was a right. Now, where that started, for all of you that don't remember, Remember the 2008 election when Obama ran against John McCain and they had the debate and they asked John McCain and Barack Obama, they asked them, is healthcare a right or is healthcare, what you want, if you can afford it. And McCain actually said the latter. And so my thing is, if healthcare is not a right, then my thing is, what's the purpose of having labor when every other free country around this world other than America has got affordable healthcare, basically universal healthcare, but we don't have that in this country? Does anybody see a problem with that? Because that's a problem. That's a real problem. And concerns about the affordability and access. You see, under the Affordable Health Care Act, people were happy because they could afford it and they were able to cover their families. The access was there where you could pretty much go any place, see any doctor via the Affordable Health Care Act. That's what you could do. What they have done is they found a way to take that away. And so they chipped at it for the longest, but have never decided that they will go back and they will do their due diligence to do the work to fix it, to add to it, to make it stronger and make it better. And the reason is because they don't want these millions of people that signed up under the Affordable Health Care Act to keep health care. Why are they trying to kick people off of health care and they want to see people sick for some strange reason? That is like the strangest thing in the world to me. I just don't understand. I really don't. And so these changes could affect small businesses and communities. So when it comes to small businesses, that means that the premiums are so high that small businesses are not going to be able to offer insurance to their employees. And that triggers down into communities, because if you got communities where there are an enormous amount of people that don't have health care, then that means that we're looking at lots of illnesses. We're looking at people that are just going to be just not covered. A lot, just people just sick, and people probably most likely dying, especially if they're critically ill, because you have chronic critical illnesses that deserve an enormous amount of attention. That is like you have the HIV, you've got cancer, you've got even folk that's got AIDS, you've got people that's got there's several forms of cancer, but the worst ones like the bone cancer. And just with these, you need the affordable health care in order to pay your part of those premiums in order to get the care that you need. But if the premiums are so high and only those folks that are in that top 1% can afford it, then that means it makes their lives and their families' lives that much easier, that much better, because they don't need to wait, because they'll be able to go to the doctor anytime they want. All of us down here that actually need the affordable health care and want to just live life the way we want to live it, knowing that we still got to pay that premium, but the premiums are not high, so we're okay with that. But now they don't even want you to have that. So, so just in the economy in general, I'm going to talk to you guys about the living pressures, the job market and wage stagnant, and how Americans are adapting to inflation and uncertainty. So when we talk about the cost of living has gone up. The cost of living is like way past normal of what you were used to paying 6 years ago. 6 years ago, this was not even a thought that would be at this point that we couldn't afford to live and people have to actually get more than one job. And now people have to actually do several things in order to survive. Nobody ever thought that any of these things would be happening right now. A lot of people didn't plan. A lot of people that took things for granted when this man was running for office, especially those people that voted for him, when he told them what he would do. But those are the folk that didn't think that they would be affected by what he's doing. Because in this case, the economy is not working for everybody. The economy is in as worst of a situation as it's been in like 30 years. 30 years ago, we had a horrible economy then. It's been much better since then. It's been much better. Could have been better, but it's been much better. You know, and when we talk about the job market shifts and the wage stagnation, okay, I told you guys earlier about unemployment and how unemployment, you know, has actually taken this rise that you would not believe as you're seeing it right before your eyes. Once again, somebody that's supposedly, quote unquote, people call a great businessman is a horrible businessman. This man don't know the first thing about not just running a business, but running a country. He's in there actually doing bidding for those that actually go and they put in their bid for what they want to buy or what part of America. Because America is for sale right now. America is for sale. It's for sale. And so there's a true thing to that that's saying that as long as they can keep the most progressive, best ideas, best small businesses coming and growing to get to the point that they need to get to, they'll make sure that that don't happen because they want to make sure that you don't get to be a part of that top 1%. To be a part of that top 1% means that you get to make decisions about America. But it's okay to bring Elon Musk, which is not an American citizen, from South Africa and make him a part of the American elite. Somebody tell me, how does that work? But also, Americans are trying to adapt because most people are coming up with contingency plans where they're trying to make more than just ends meet. They're trying to connect a lot of different dots, you know, and the dots that's going to be most beneficial, cost beneficial for their families. Because when you're raising a family, that takes a lot. That takes a lot. It takes a lot. So let me tell you guys about voting rights, because voting rights is also one of those things that's popping up right now because you know that's something else that puts us at an all-time low. And the reason why is because there's three things. There's ongoing debates about access, security, and fairness. There's also an issue with how voting rules affect marginalized communities. And there's also the importance of civic participants or participation in 2026. What I want to tell you guys is this. There shouldn't be no ongoing debates because we're all citizens and we know the naturalized citizens of America, where we have had our folk have done what was necessary to make sure that we had the options and the rights to vote. Well, a lot of us have taken advantage of voting, but we have an enormous amount of people that have decided either they were not going to vote or they will vote in a way that, I don't know, just hoping that there was something good going to come out of the vote. Because I think anybody that's voted for this guy, hey, that's your right. But I definitely want to know, what were you thinking about when you decided you was going to vote for Donald Trump? I really want to know if you, especially if you're somebody that looked like me, and there was 10%, 10, 15% of people that look like me that voted for him. I want to know, what was your thought process? What is it that you really saw that told you that you are going to go and you're going to vote for him? I really want to know what that is, because what I'm seeing right now is that you guys are finding out, but you're also trying to hide that too. And the reason why you're trying to hide it is because you don't want nobody to know that you're just that much more of a horrible person than he is. Because that is the most horrible, that is so horrible, that when you cast that vote, that you would actually rain down this kind of terror on each and every person here in America. Because we know there's an enormous amount of us, the majority of us did not vote for this man. We know that. But yet still, he's in office. You know, when we talk about voting rules, how they affect marginalized communities, you got all these states that are running around here now. They are creating brand new voting laws. Why they're doing that is because they know that the majority of the people that are sane would not vote for Donald Trump, but they also know that they have that wonderful midterm election coming up. And so with that midterm election, they already know they're not going to win. But what did they do to try to aid that? They gave Texas the right to actually go and redistrict. Texas went and did a redistrict without bringing it to the people, which was illegal, and they should not be allowed to use that. Well, they took that to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yes, you can. Again, that damn Supreme Court. But to combat that situation, to let you know that doing wrong, two wrongs don't make a right, but there are several other states around this country that actually took it to their people and asked the people on a ballot if redistricting is something that's feasible, and if they would support that. There are several states that got that support, especially the state of California. So remember those 5 seats that Donald Trump asked Texas to give him? That's now being countered by several states that have actually took it to the ballot to their people that said, yes, redistrict, that are going to give the other side way more seats. So we know that where the control is going to be coming from. So despite that, and again, 2 wrongs don't make a right. But in this situation, if they're not playing by the rules, if you don't play by those same rules, then you lose. Nobody wants to lose. Everybody wants to win. In this case, I can honestly say that I am in support of what those folk are doing, especially California. Because there's no way that I would want to be under rule of some conservatism that's trying to control not only my life as to what I eat, when I eat, who I'm sleeping with, are we having children? When we have children, we must have children. If a woman is pregnant, then she must have the baby. If she don't have that baby, then now she's going to prison, depending upon the state. This is all crazy. All of that's about voting. Because had the people actually paid attention a whole cycle prior to when they overturned Roe v. Wade, we wouldn't be having this. We wouldn't be having this. And that was a horrible midterm election that got rid of Roe v. Wade. because a lot of people didn't feel like their vote counted and they needed to participate in the process. I hope we don't have that again, because that was one thing that caused us more problems than anybody could ever imagine. And so now you're looking at, even though people voted, you know, even for the same-sex marriages, because it was on ballots all around the country. People voted for that, but now they actually feel like they can go back and they can just tell you, if you're not a man and you're not a woman, you can't be man and woman when you say you're married, because it says that the Bible speaks of one man and one woman. I ain't gonna touch that yet, but I'll tell you this. For those of you that are about that Christian religion, I'm gonna tell you, you need to really second look at as to what is happening, because that whole principle is under those very same white Christians that are ruling the White House, that are passing these rules and these laws that are restricting everything that's about freedom. Because remember, these people, when they talking about religion, they don't celebrate that religion the same way most people do. They do not. And so to abide by those principles is repressive. Those people have clearly shown where they stand. And so, I don't know. I just think that that's something else that you guys just want to make sure you take a look at. And so, the importance of the civic participation, especially now in 2026, is that people need to make sure that they go to the polls and they vote in this midterm election. I don't care who you are, and I'm saying this right now. I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican, but I will guarantee you this one thing, and I'm saying this on air. When I go and I vote, I'm going straight down the ballot. I'm just going to vote for Democrats. I'm not even doing vetting. I'm not vetting anybody. I just know that I'm voting Democrat because I'm going to give them this opportunity. I'm going to give them the opportunity to let me know that I can trust them. So the next time I'll know that I'm not going to. But I'm trusting them now because what the conservative folks, these Republicans are doing, these folks are all about repressing people's rights. They can give less than one care about any iota, about anybody that's not rich. They're all there working for rich folk. And you got some Democrats that's doing the same thing. When that billionaire called them on the phone and he tell them, you better vote for this, you better not vote for that, that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. But I'm going to tell you, this midterm election, everybody that's got the right to vote and everybody that's eligible to vote, please go vote. Please go vote. Vote early. I'm always voting early, just so you know. I don't like standing in the lines. So I do early voting. Every time there's an election, I do early voting. I ain't waiting for that day of voting. Because I can't stand in them lines. The lines get long because a lot of people like to wait till late to vote. I want to vote early. Go and vote early. Go and vote early in this midterm election. Please let people know that you have done your civic duty and you've done all you can when you go to the polls and you vote. Because that matters. It matters to each and every last one of us. It matters. So let's talk about this immigration. You know, they've got the border policy debates, they got economic and humanitarian implications, and how immigration affects local communities. Let's first start with this border policy debate. Now, if you guys remember, they were saying under the Biden and Harris administration that we had open borders. Now, ever since I came into existence on this earth in 1966, that's my born on year. Ever since then, you know, I understand and I've learned as I've grown and matured from a young kid to a young adult to a mature adult now as to not only what my civic engagements are, but why they're important. So when we talk about this border policies are not what they're supposed to be. And let me tell you what I mean by that is that, we have programs, and we have programs that actually bring workers from other countries, that is, from blue collar to professional, that people have to, go through clearance before they're actually authorized to come over into the country. Now, let me tell you, under the professional side, those are H-1B programs that major corporations, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, plenty of more, and many, many more, they apply with Homeland Security for these H-1B workers, because if you're doing technical work, especially, that's under the professional field. They apply for so many workers for whatever country or countries to bring people in, right? When they bring those people in, they're responsible. You guys need to make sure you understand this. I'm talking about the H-1B program first. Under this program, the company is responsible for that undocumented worker that's here. The company here in America is responsible for those workers that come to America undocumented. So I want to make sure you understand, because these folk primarily, we're talking about the folks in the top 1%. So when they fulfill that contract, those people are supposed to be returned to their country. So let me tell you how it works. The majority of those folk, they come here, they do this work, they don't fulfill the contract, but they go AWOL. So now the company, supposed to, quote unquote, don't know where the worker is, and the worker is just wandering all about somewhere. This is how they get to stay in the country. That's how they get to stay in the country. So do you think Homeland Security is roaming like they're supposed to, roaming the country and tracking these people? No, they're not. But they tell people in these political campaigns that the Democratic Party is bringing, has got open borders and just letting people run into the country. Now, that's from the professional side, but that same technique applies to all the other programs, whether it's H-2A, whether it's H-2B. See, these are the folk that come in from other countries that do the work in the fields, that is, going out picking the fruit and plowing fields and things of that nature. That's how those people get here. The majority of them come from around the South American area. You got a lot that comes from, other parts, but the majority come from the South American countries. When they get here, that same rule that I told you about the H-1B program applies to these programs. Well, when those workers are supposed, when that contract is about up, because they actually have migrant housing for them and everything, those people take off and run as well. So they're just in the country. And so what some of those people have done is that they had been here like maybe 10, 15 years. And so when they've been here, what they did was they went and they found an American that they could marry to get the citizenship, be married for a few years, maybe 5, 10 years. They still got contact with their family, They're paid this American to be here. And so while they're here, they're still, got contact with their family that's abroad because they're still sending them money. So now they get to the point that they can get an immigration lawyer that's under the illegal system that's going to actually bring them here. Now, this is how a lot of folk are making money. But at the same time, what you have to understand is that those very same people that are here illegal, especially the ones that are crying right now, they're crying right now because they have no choice but to go home because they got no papers. But you got people that's been here for the longest. Now remember, under the Obama administration, they had got this law passed, via that went up to the Supreme Court that allowed the Dreamers Bill, that allowed these folk, including the children, to stay. So people wouldn't, so they wouldn't be deported. So what has happened now is under this administration, both the first term in 2016 and this one now, what are they doing? They put out this falsehood telling people that the undocumented workers are taking all the jobs. All the illegal people are taking all the jobs. But I want you to remember, all of these top Fortune 500 companies, all of them, all the way down to all these farms, are benefiting from this slave labor. They're benefiting from this. So this is just a little dab as to into immigration and how deep that goes, because there's a whole lot more into this. And the reason why I can speak about those programs is because as a federal employee, I've actually had to do some of those investigations. So I know this. So it's not just something just to be saying. And so from the economic and humanitarian implication when it comes to immigration, we've got had so many undocumented workers that now a lot of them have now become documented. But the issue is that now a lot of them, that are being deported is a hurt on the economy because the economy has gotten used to the money that these people spend. So again, we're going back to greed, because if they're spending that money, we want that money to stay here. So let's just find a way to bypass what the law says and let's just make them citizens. Good or bad, that's what's happened. Good or bad. It depends upon the person. It depends upon the family. But that's where we are with that. And so how immigration affects all of our local communities is that all of the communities where all of these people are close to or a part of, or what they share with, the issue is that now that the economy has gotten used to those dollars and these people, they count them in the census, then it's taking away from where a lot of communities are actually getting funding, which means they're not. So again, that's a two-headed monster where we have to look at this many different ways. Many different ways. Now, the big thing that's just happened is I want to talk about this conflict with Venezuela. And, the tensions and global implications are rising, concerns about the military engagement, and how the conflict affects energy markets, diplomacy, and national security are the most important things to talk about at this point. First thing is this. When they talk about rising tensions and implications, I want to ask you guys this. Who in their right mind, and why would you think that it's okay for one country to say it can control another country and tell this country what they can and cannot have? First of all, does that even sound right at all? The answer is no, it does not. Because for me, it's like, how dare you tell me what I can have in my house, and you want to come up in my house and tell me what I can and cannot have? Really? Now, there's been several dictators that these folk have caused uprisings in these countries, caused people to get killed. And when they cause these people to get killed, they forget about the consequences behind that. Now, with the Venezuelan situation, how can you, America, under this dictator, okay, this dictator telling another dictator that you're bad and we're going to just take you out, we're going to bring you here to America and hold you accountable and put you under our justice system and prosecute you? I don't know nowhere in this entire world, I don't care what country you in or what damn world you living in, you know good and well you cannot do that. Well, that's what they're trying to do. And so to get Maduro and his wife and to bring them here to America like they did, but then say they're voiding the immigration policy with the folk that are here from Venezuela, and they're going to deport them and send them back to Venezuela. But on top of that, Donald Trump says he is going to run Venezuela until he feels like they're able to lead on their own. Now, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about that, because he's doing this in more than one country. On Christmas Day, they did the airstrikes in northern Nigeria. That's for two reasons. Venezuela, they're mad because they want the oil in Venezuela, because they won't sell it to America and they're selling it to another country. They're upset about that. So now, by capturing the president and his wife of that country, Donald Trump wants to control that when he can't control America. So he's going to steal the oil from Venezuela, bring it to America, put it in America's reserves, and take all the credit for that. But it's thievery. It's thievery. That's what he's doing. One dictator to another. Two wrongs don't make a right. That's wrong on all levels. Is America going to hold Donald Trump accountable? Or the Supreme Court going to tell them that needs to be voided and they need to take these people back to their country and stop that foolishness? Because if they're doing that, then just think about other countries now that want to run around and they want to start kidnapping diplomats. They just start kidnapping diplomats. It doesn't matter what country. Is that right? No, that's against the Geneva Code. I can speak on that because I'm a veteran. You cannot do that. So, who honestly thinks that Donald Trump can't run America, but now he wants to run two countries? But he's stealing the oil from Venezuela. He only did that strike in northern Nigeria talking about Christians, when there's Christians in America that they need to be rescuing, but they want to rescue some Christians that they say are being persecuted in northern Nigeria, only to get closer to Niger and the other two countries that's near it to steal more resources. This is all about stealing resources. There ain't no war, but I will tell you the consequences to him doing what he's doing in Venezuela is that this is what the American people need to know, is that China and Russia are not going to stand for that. They have already spoken that if Donald Trump does that, then they're going to step in to support Venezuela. Now, what kind of war are we looking at? See, this is what people need to be understanding. that you let a criminal get into the White House thinking he's running the country when all he knows is thievery because he's not a damn good business person at all. There is not a moral, ethical bone in that man's body. But then he can speak out just when he wants to and how he wants to and say he wants to defund Black America. Now, what are we to do about that, especially the people that look like me that say they support Donald Trump? Are they still supporting him now? Now, from the military engagement part, now I want you guys to know that our military, you can always, when there's an order that you don't feel is lawful, you do not have to carry that out. But I honestly think for those that actually carried that out, those are people that's just like him. But you cannot tell me that that was right on any shape or form. Because I'm just going to say this. If that happens to folk that are American, then I want to see what that's like, because I don't like that. Because there ain't nothing good about that. That right there is starting some crap. That, believe me, that when you start doing that kind of stuff, that's going to start happening for real, for real, for real. And it matters not who it is. Because if you're doing this, then what about the other folk that's going to start doing it? And so this conflict, is definitely going to affect energy markets. Energy markets will be affected because, for one, with them stealing their oil and trying to bring that reserve here to the U.S., I don't know. That's one it's convoluted. It's convoluted, but that's the resource that they're trying to get. That's the whole resource that they're trying to get. There ain't nothing else besides that bull crap that they putting on mainstream media talking about, they're going and they're holding a dictator accountable. That's bull crap. No, you're not. No, you're not. This ain't even about that. And so when we talk about diplomacy, now we've already got countries already around this world that have banned Americans from coming there. Now, what's going to happen if the ban gets larger and it gets bigger? Then what? Then what? So see, ain't nobody talking about that. But yeah, there are countries that are already banning Americans from coming over there to different, which there are several countries now that's actually doing that, and we're losing allies. So my thing is this. I'd rather play it safe and be comfortable and not have to worry about traveling to some other country, knowing that once I get there, I might not be able to leave because they want to lock me up. That's just crazy. And then when we talk about national security, and as I was saying, is that now if this starts happening where just countries just start coming in and they just kidnapping our presidents or the other diplomats, and just doing this thing where it's just going all over the place. What should we expect from that? I think that's one of those things that we as Americans, we've got to be very, very cautious as to how we handle these kind of things if we're really for this, because those that got the power to speak up need to be speaking up, and they need to be stopping that, because there's nothing that says that that's right. And so anytime, I know from past history, anytime that there's a resource that this country doesn't have access to, it always finds a way to cause an uprising in that country, cause people to kill leaders. They go in, kill the main leader, and then the country's kind of like at a standstill until it starts over again. Not right, but that's what they do. So let me just tell you guys this. There's three things that's relevant to Americans right now at this point. That's economic stability, that's access to essential services, and that's protection of rights and freedoms. And so when we talk about economic stability, that is, we've got to think about the rising cost of living. We've got to think about job security and wage growth. We've got to think about the impact of government decisions on households and budgets. So that means that from the legislative and judicial parts of this country's going to have to get better. And they're going to have to put things back to where they were. To get back to equilibrium means that you're going to have to bring those very same resources that were taken from one side and put on the other side. We got to bring that back. We got to bring that back, because if we continue on this path right now, and just think about this, there's an enormous amount of jobs that hadn't given people raises over the last 7 to 8 years. Some people got raises last year, they got raises this year, but there's been a lot of companies where that did not happen. Unemployment is actually rising and has been on a steady rise here in less than a whole year under this administration. So if that's the case, then what are we going to do about that? We've got to think about those things, because people have got to plan. And if you don't plan and you don't make things the way they need to be, then we're going to have other problems that we'll be dealing with. When we talk about the access to essential services, that's healthcare affordability, federal programs are at risk during a shutdown, and community level effects on schools, transportation, and safety nets. These are the programs that people have grown accustomed to, and they live by the safety net, especially when there's a shortfall. Those programs are there to help lift people up or to keep them steady until they can do a whole lot better. By taking away resources from those programs, we're allowing people to suffer. Is it really a good thing to say Americans should just struggle and just suffer from all the things that that they know better as to where's the country when they need the help? Now, it's a true fact that with these social programs, a lot of them, that is when we talk about the welfare and you talk about the Medicare and Medicaid, normally, there are some Black people that are on those programs, but there's not a lot. And so it's like when Black folk apply for those programs, what has normally happened for them is that they've been found to be unqualified. Okay? So with them being found to be unqualified, they're able to continuously save money, but they save the money by hurting Black people at the same time. But you got people that say that they're okay with, especially what this administration is doing. I don't see it. And so when we talk about the protection of rights and freedoms, voting access and representation, immigration policies affecting families and communities, national security concerns, and human cost of conflict. These things are major here. And this basically helps in the operation of the world. And so when we talk about that voting access to representation, when we go vote, we should have that opportunity to go and vote free and fairly, and not have folk coming up behind us trying to find out how we voting or what you're doing or whatever have you, because that's sacred. That's not for folk to be looking over your back and say, oh, let me see how you vote. These immigration policies, they're going to affect plenty of families and communities. But the thing is, when are they going to actually go and sit down and just do the policy? That's what Republicans and Democrats need to actually take this serious and do the job that they need to do. We don't need to go close to what we need to do. We just need to do the job. And national security concerns and human cost of conflict. That is one that with the human cost of conflict, That is one that we can't really say what's the plus and what's the minus to this, because that is what it is. And so I want to thank you guys for being here. For those of you that have tuned in and watched the show, I want you guys to know that if even if it's tomorrow, if there's anything breaking more that's different about this situation in Venezuela, I'll definitely bring it to you. Um, I just want to thank you guys, and I look forward to our season premiere on September. I'm saying on January 12th. I look forward to that, and I'm going to be looking for you guys to be there to support us and to enjoy the show. So, in closing, as we close tonight's special edition of American Black and White, I want to leave you with this. America has always been at its strongest when everyday people stay informed, stay engaged, and stay united in purpose. The challenge we face, from economic uncertainty to global conflict, are not small, but neither is the power of the American people. Leadership will rise and fall, policies will shift, crises will come and go, but the heartbeat of this nation has always been its people. People who demand better, who push for progress, and who refuse to let fear or division define our future. Tonight's conversation is just the beginning. Keep asking questions, keep holding power accountable, and keep believing that your voice matters, because it does. Thank you for joining me. I'm Charles King, and this is America in Black and White. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay empowered. You guys have a great evening.